Under a heavy rain, the melancholic air contrasted with the heavy current of the aqueduct where a couple walked, as if it were a beautiful sunny day in the park. As they approached the rapids, the man said this was the true man-eating river. Leaning on his arm, the woman beside him called out for the sensei to leave, so they tied a rope connecting their wrists, and thus the man declared they would be together forever. Suddenly, a runaway truck appeared on the muddy road and ran over the couple. On this day, a certain great author and his lover left this world. After this tragedy, the man woke up in an unknown sanctuary, looking around with a strange disinterest at his foiled plan. Analyzing the statue of an angel, he supposed this was the world we go to after death, a place with a rather Western style. However, a woman appeared and explained that this was not the destination for the dead. Introducing herself as the guide for those who descend to this world, she said her name was Annette. According to her, the newly deceased was chosen to enter this land, surrounded by darkness Zauberberg, to become a hero who must bring light and hope. Showing no motivation with what was said, the man realized that in other words, besides having failed in his plan to take his life alongside his lover, he was also brought to this strange place without his consent. With a slight laugh, he put his hand on his head and stated that his life had always been a great shame. Without time for the young man's drama, Annette warned that he had an urgent mission to fulfill, but the hero had swallowed several sedatives to leave this life behind. Desperate, Annette detoxified him with her magic, although he didn't like it much. The guide ordered the adventurer to get up to fulfill his destiny of saving this planet, but the renowned author wanted nothing to do with heroism. He just wanted to die, period. While the woman fumed as she explained that he was the chosen one, he gathered the sedatives from the ground and slowly swallowed a few, then laughed sarcastically and emphasized that he hadn't asked to be chosen for anything. Annette asked if he was visited by a truck, and remembering the moment of the accident, he said yes. So she explained that it was the selection truck for the other world running over heroes, who among all the depressed people who lived on planet Earth, only those crushed by the sweet rubber of the tire could start from scratch and build a life truly worth living in this world of adventures. However, in the author's mind, his only chance of being happy was jumping into that stream with his beloved, and that elf with a pope hat ruined everything, saying that he asked who they were to decide whether someone was unhappy or not. Internally, Annette cursed the man for his ingratitude. Anyway, she was sure he would change his mind when he saw the status he gained in this place, because every human brought here receives the ability to wield superhuman powers. The thing is, as soon as she saw the man's status, he was a complete weakling with a measly 1 point of life and poisoned. The guy was practically a walking corpse. Not wanting to let it go, the guide searched every corner of the status for any special ability she might have missed, but all she found were packs of cigarettes, sedatives, and a notebook with a pen in the inventory. There was no way around it. The guy was indeed a human slime with lung cancer. Not that he was disappointed, as he had no expectations, but the author turned his back and announced that he was leaving. Feeling guilty, Annette grabbed his wrist and apologized for everything, assuming they might have brought him by mistake. Given that the guy was extremely weak, she made it clear that he would not survive in this world. Once again, he laughed and replied that this had always been his life, whether in his original world or now. Not wanting to leave the human adrift, Annette asked him to stay inside for now, as going out would expose him to the many dangers outside, but the sensei didn't expect to live. On the contrary, he wouldn't mind giving up everything to never exist again, saying that he turned and left while the guide watched with teary eyes, noting that this human was different from the others. There was a time when Annette took pride in guiding inhabitants from another world, welcoming people with open arms and getting excited to meet all kinds of folks from an alternate reality. Until one day she received an arrogant boy who was one of those employees exploited to the bone by his company, and the idea of becoming a hero went to his head. Arrogant, the kid bragged about everything he did, and every time Annette found herself praising the guy's performance without thinking that maybe she had become just a hero worshiper instead of a woman guiding the representatives of light in this world. So to reverse this situation, she asked Sensei to at least find a profession before leaving, and he turned with a smirk and informed her that he was already a born writer, nothing more, nothing less. He said goodbye to the girl with the pretty ears and left for good. As the sanctuary gate closed, Annette was sure she had been waiting for this man to arrive. Instead of a thrush or a vulture in this world, fierce and aggressive dragons flew in the skies. Beneath them on the ground walked the depressive writer who didn't understand a single thing written on the direction signs. As if that weren't enough, he had no doubt that he would never find a cup of coffee around there. Out of nowhere, some internal system alerted that the guide discovered the landmark Great Plains of Erston, earning him 5 experience points. With a terrible headache, Sensei asked the voice to stop talking inside his ear, but the system then announced that he had leveled up to level 2 using a noisy heroic symphony in the background. Next, he notices the presence of a death tree holding a girl hostage, and she begs the adventurer for help, assuming that's what he is, of course. However, the writer doesn't lift a finger. He just observes, noting that today is the day he meets people with strange ears. Regardless, he acknowledges that women on the brink of death have a unique charm, so he asks the girl if he can write a romance based on her. She screams to be saved again, and he finally realizes she needs help, so he stretches his arms up to grab her, but his height isn't enough. The girl asks if he has a sword or spell, but just as he's about to answer, Sensei is also grabbed by the death tree. At least he's relieved it's by the neck, because it cuts off his air supply. With little time left, he says it was a pleasure to meet her, but she doesn't feel the same. Pleasure is something they won't experience when the tree uses its suction to steal their life force. In other words, they have only a few minutes to live. Hanging by his neck, this is the news Sensei had prayed for. As he feels weaker, he sings the song, "I Have to Go Now," until his neck bends forward in his final moments. An ominous energy escapes his body, spreading through the death tree's branches until it consumes the entire structure, causing an explosion that frees the prisoners. While Sensei laments not having died, the system announces that 300 damage was inflicted by the adventurer's poison. To make his headache worse, the symphony returns to announce another level up. Curious about all this, the cat girl asks what his deal is because he pretended to be weak, yet after what just happened, he clearly has some sophisticated tricks up his sleeve. But he doesn't answer her question. He just reflects that for the 5th time he asked for death and death did not come. In a way, he doesn't know who's winning this contest. The girl says she doesn't know why the guy is depressed, but she's happy he survived, so she thanks him for the help, invites him to her home, and asks the adventurer's name. He says he's called Sensei, and when the man feels his hand being pulled by the girl, he immediately remembers Seiken, who said the exact same thing the cat girl did when they were about to kill themselves. Thinking about this, he wonders if Seiken also came to this world while repeating his beloved's name over and over. Thinking the guy is calling her by that name, the cat girl tries to correct him by telling her real name, but all Sensei does is repeat Seiken's name. With the arrival of the breeze, the writer finds a reason to live amidst this insanity. Come what may, he will find Seiken wherever she is. With the red string tied around his wrist, he intends to reunite with the woman of his life so they can continue the plan that went wrong last time. Meanwhile, Annette prays to the gods of Zauberberg to protect this adventurer, hoping to meet him again one day. Contrary to her expectations, her wish is granted sooner than she imagined because it was Sensei opening the door at that very moment. Excited even though she met the guy 20 minutes ago, she runs to him like he returned from war after 4 years of marriage until the cat girl shows up behind him, killing the mood. Not wanting to be involved, Sensei announces he's looking for a lady named Seiken, making the guide go crazy with each new woman entering the story. Whether malicious or not, Annette says she has no idea who that is, so Sensei sets off on his quest without a single clue. The cat girl reassures him that she's sure the lady is somewhere around, and since it's still a long way to her house, she invites her companion to make a stop in the city of Roth Castle. With that, she pulls Sensei by the arm, and Annette immediately shows up to teach the feline a lesson, saying it's absurd to hold a man's hand in public. Confused, the cat girl asks why this woman is following them, but the guide has no answer. With that, the short girl assumes Annette has her eye on Sensei, driving Annette crazy, trying to justify herself in every possible way, emphasizing that her job is to guide the inhabitants of the other world. Hearing this, the cat girl discovers Sensei is not from this planet, which explains why he's so strong. Annette is confused because his stats say otherwise, so the girl explains that Sensei killed the Tree of Life with a single attack and saved her life. Imagining that her rescue created an intimate bond between them, Annette starts feeling sick with jealousy, kneeling and exuding a dark aura while cursing the cat girl. Ignoring the drama, Sensei finds a perfect bed for himself and announces he's going to take a nap and to wake him when they reach the city. He bids farewell to Annette and Tama before closing the coffin. The cat girl complains that's not her name, making the guide laugh and boast she was called by the correct name. The journey truly begins with Annette pulling Sensei's coffin by a rope, which snaps from the force she exerted. In the late afternoon, in a palace located somewhere in this unknown world, a young maiden gazes at the beautiful sea view from a balcony. Returning to Sensei, the girls had been dragging the boy for so long that the cat girl lost her patience and told him to walk on his own, but there was no response. Annette checked to see if the guy had died, but his status indicated he was just taking a nap. Since they were close to their destination, the elf asked Tama to carry the coffin again, which made the cat girl complain once more that that wasn't her name. Inside the coffin, Sensei dreamed of having his beloved Sakin in his arms again so they could finish what they had started. After some time, the group arrived in the city of Roth, and the writer began to grasp that he was in a completely different world. This realization sparked his artistic side with all the things he could never have imagined seeing in his life. Amidst this, Annette announced she would request an audience with the king. Once in the throne room, the supreme ruler of Roth introduced himself as Thomas alongside his daughter Charlotte. The king offered the group accommodations in the castle for the night, which made the travelers smile, but there was a condition. Since he loved hearing stories from travelers, he wished the adventurers would share their experiences and memories with him. Considering he had just arrived and wasn't the most proactive adventurer in the world, Sensei asked if it was enough to talk about what it was like to sleep in a coffin, making Thomas think it was a death threat. To divert attention from this topic, Annette commented that Princess Charlotte was very beautiful, and besides thanking for the compliment, the king informed them that she would soon be married. Moreover, he wanted to ask for advice about it. Before explaining further, he asked two men to enter the throne room. According to the sovereign, there were two candidates for the princess's hand, the brave knight Gomez and Otto, the wandering minstrel of love. The king explained that perhaps due to the influence of the demon king of wrath, monster activity had recently increased. Considering his age, Thomas couldn't deal with this great threat alone. Therefore, one of these two would become Charlotte's husband, and the next king who would face the threats to Roth alongside the future queen. However, since the princess had not yet chosen which option she wanted, Thomas would like the candidates to weigh in. After pondering this matter for a few seconds, Sensei said he had no idea, as this choice would determine the future of the princess and the kingdom as a whole, and it shouldn't be placed on the shoulders of strangers who had just arrived and were unknown to everyone. To conclude, Sensei commented that Thomas was a horrible tyrant king who didn't deserve the crown he wore. With that said, the two women accompanying the boy tried to smooth over the situation in every way, explaining that this guy came from another world and didn't know how to behave appropriately in this place. At night, the writer gazed out the window of his room with a melancholic expression until Annette woke up and asked if he was having trouble sleeping. In truth, Sensei confessed that he never could sleep, which left the elf speechless for a moment. Stammering, she asked who this Sakin he always talked about was, but before he could answer, the cat girl's tail poked out from under the blanket, revealing that she had been sleeping on the writer's lap the whole time. Annoyed by this, Annette scolded the girl for resting on a gentleman's legs, while the cat girl argued that she was protecting herself from the cold because that's what her kind did. Furthermore, she accused the elf of being jealous, which was why she was making such a fuss. In the middle of their argument, Sensei left the room to get some air and decided to take a walk around the castle. On the same balcony she occupied most of her days, Charlotte was contemplating the view of the water under the moonlight, and Sensei arrived commenting that the landscape was indeed wonderful. In fact, the lake was so beautiful it made him want to drown in it, according to his words. Charlotte expressed her indignation at these death-related words, which made the boy laugh, since she was far more concerned about his life than he was. Changing the subject as she was worried about her future and the fate of the country, the princess confessed she couldn't choose between Gomez and Otto. The knight, although he had recently arrived in the kingdom, was already beloved by everyone and had become an authority among the soldiers, earning the king's trust. The girl thought she should choose this warrior for these reasons, but on the other hand, Otto was her childhood friend. Whenever she felt depressed, the minstrel sang songs that soothed her soul. Upon hearing this, Sensei noted that Charlotte was a kind girl who cared about her father unlike him. The author's life had been a complete disaster with multiple suicide attempts deeply affecting his parents. Throughout his existence, Sensei had never asked anyone to choose how he should live. With that said, he believed the princess should decide for herself what she truly desired. The next day, the king gathered the group of travelers in the throne room again so they could witness his daughter's decision about the marriage. Annette remarked that for the good of the kingdom, surely the young woman had chosen Gomez, while the cat girl thought the musician suited the princess better. At that moment, Thomas asked his daughter to stand before the chosen man and make her vows. She slowly walked up to Sensei, took his hand, and declared that she would end her life with this man. Everyone around was shocked by the declaration, and Annette even fainted. Charlotte explained that as she had said the previous day, Otto sang songs to her when she was feeling depressed. But when she thought about it, she realized he also appeared when she was fine, even annoying her all night with a new song. Besides that, she didn't want to marry Gomez because the guy had a bit of a strong smell. Desperate, Thomas approaches his daughter and urges her to choose one of the men offered to her. However, his daughter stands her ground and condemns her father's attitude, pointing out that he wants to force her into marriage without even caring about her opinion. In truth, the girl didn't even want to get married, but no one considered her feelings in one of the most important decisions of her life except for the traveling writer. Sensei was the only one who listened to the princess and asked what she wanted to do with her life. In the midst of this, Gomez reveals why he didn't have a pleasant odor, as he removes his armor, revealing himself to be a minotaur, a servant of the demon king of wrath. The monster's initial plan was to ascend to the throne by marrying the princess and then delivering her to his master. But his true identity was discovered. Sensei asks the young woman if she realized the man was a monster, but she had only sensed the foul smell coming from him, nothing more. Embarrassed by the conversation, the Minotaur puts an end to the insults and declares that he no longer needs to ascend the throne, so he will simply kill everyone. As the cat girl tries to wake Annette, the kingdom's guards attack the monster, but they are all easily defeated. A pillar destroyed by the monster's punch almost falls on the elf, but the cat girl saves her just in time. Not taking it lightly, she counterattacks with a knee to the giant bull's face, showing that she won't be defeated as easily as the soldiers. Otto plays a melody called Song of the Nameless Hero, making the cat girl think she was being empowered, but the music was useless, merely adding to the fight's atmosphere. Speaking of which, the Minotaur attacks his opponent with his horns, but she dodges and strikes the bull again. Despite the initial advantage, the cat girl is hit by the enemy's horn, which was extremely strong and sharp. Taking advantage of this weapon's power, the Minotaur announces he will gather all his strength for the next strike. Sensei interrupts the fight by calling the monster a little cow and asks him to kill the kingdom's newest couple first. After all, the princess had rid herself of her idiotic father, and the little cow's fantastic horns seemed the most stylish way to reach the afterlife. Everyone around is shocked by the man's stance, except the Minotaur, who would gladly do as asked, then kill the king, everyone in the room, all the kingdom's citizens, and finally set everything on fire until nothing remained. While Charlotte seems distressed by this statement, Sensei responds that it's fine with him because he won't be alive anyway. Thus, the Minotaur wishes the couple to enjoy life after death and charges at them. However, on the brink of death, Charlotte gives up on the idea and, crying, decides to live and protect the people of this kingdom. Hearing this, Sensei comments that the princess was as kind as he imagined and then pushes the girl out of the horn's path, saying she isn't fit to be his death partner. At this moment, Annette awakens and conjures a strong light barrier that blocks the Minotaur's passage. The elf declares she will never let Sensei die as long as she's around. Besides blocking the attack, the level 18 cleric manages to destroy the enemy's powerful horn, and this time even the cat girl is impressed by her colleague's talent. Calling the cat girl Tama once again, Annette asks her to do her part, so Tama charges at the giant bull with a wildcat strike. The force of this power was so great that it sent the massive creature outside the castle, devastating the wall and throwing him into the lake. When the adrenaline subsides, Tama turns her face away from the elf, awkwardly thanking her for saving her life. Annette smiles and says the same, also thanking her for being saved by the cat girl. Behind them, Otto announces he will turn this friendship into a song, but Tama tells him to run away. While Charlotte watched the landscape she loves through the hole in the wall, her father kneels before his daughter and begs for forgiveness for not considering her feelings at such an important moment. In tears, the king implores the princess's forgiveness, who touches her father's shoulder and says that from now on she wants to be heard regarding the kingdom's problems and her life as a whole. With that said, the two embrace lovingly and cry together in reconciliation. Sensei observes that he failed to die once again. A day later, a soldier alerts about the arrival of monsters near the south gate, so the queen orders her royal guard to exterminate the threat. Sitting on the throne with her crown, she remembers that the kingdom must be protected and relies on her men for this. Then all the soldiers bow and exalt Her Majesty Queen Charlotte. Dragging Sensei once more, his two companions comment on the princess's audacity in becoming the ruler of Roth, but worry about a 16-year-old girl having to deal with the challenges of governing a kingdom and its people. Overhearing the conversation, Sensei comments from inside the coffin that the girl chose this for herself, so they shouldn't worry about anything. Finally, he notes that women on the verge of death are beautiful, but those who rise on their own are equally wonderful. Speaking of which, as the writer is dragged, Tama asks if the guy can walk on his own, being a fan of such a thing. On the other hand, distracted Sensei analyzes the beauty of the blue sky that illuminates his deep dark circles.